Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hash Rate. My name is Mark Jeffrey. My guest today is James Woodman of Targon, otherwise known as Bittensor Subnet 4. Hello, James. How are you doing?
Hello, Mark. Thank you for having me.
So you and I had quite the week last week. We were at Bittensor ENDGAME, which was, as far as I know, like the very first Bittensor conference. Is that correct? Or has there been one before this?
That's correct. There's been very informal Bittensor meetups, but no official conference. I remember getting involved in the project a couple of years ago, and we were thinking, oh, maybe we can have a conference, but no one cared, right? No one was ever going to come out. It was fantastic. It was great to meet you, right? I was really thrilled to meet you. It was great to meet just everyone. It's so different in person sometimes. You know, you see these people online, you interact with them every single day of your life. So it's nice to put a face to a name.
Yeah, Keith Singery. I mean, Keith Singery is a Sasquatch. The guy's like 9 feet tall, which I had no idea, right? People are taller online or shorter online, but when you meet them in real life, you're like, oh my God, that's you. That's not what I pictured, right? So,
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what's better or worse. I'm not the tallest guy in the world, right? But people always say, I thought you were a little taller. So I take that. That, whatever the hell that means.
You feel tall online. You have a great presence. So yeah, I can see why people think you're taller, right? So
yeah. So it is what it is. But yeah, Keith's a big guy, but I thought the energy was fantastic. People seemed quite focused. There were obviously the people who have been here for a long time. There were people like yourself who have recently, we've welcomed into the ecosystem with open arms. There were, Sandhill Road venture firms.
There were a few, yes. And some that I knew, like Miko Matsumura showed up from Gumi Cryptos. So yeah.
Yeah, he was there. It was very high signal. I thought it was great to have it in Austin too. We had people buy our space, decentralized AI.
Yeah,
co-working.
So let's just paint the picture for those who were not there, right? So there was, I would guess something like 250 attendees. So not like massive, not like, Token 2049 or whatever in Dubai. So still relatively small. Most of us knew each other online. Like we, even though like we hadn't met in real life, we had all sort of interacted for the most part online over the last year and a half or so. You've been involved a lot longer in the Bittensor ecosystem than me, so you for like the last 4 years or so. But I felt like it was and people came from all over the world, so there were a lot of people who flew in from Europe, a lot of people. Yeah, so a lot of people felt that this was a seminal moment in history, this sort of conference that we'll all look back on and be like, oh my God, remember the first one, right? Like it felt to me like the very early Bitcoin conferences, or even the very early internet conferences that I went to in the late 90s, where there was like, a couple hundred people maybe. And anyone who was not there thought we were all insane, that this internet thing was going to like be a thing, right? It felt like that to me. Is that how it felt to you?
Well, it gives me the chills when you say that.
I did want to point out my cool little Bittensor cube with the TAO on it, which is right next to my desk TARDIS. So there's a new addition to the background here, which will forever remain there. Yeah.
There's a lot of swag that I picked up this sucker. I mean, there's some other stuff that I probably got. It's cool. It's just it was a fantastic conference, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about how you got involved in Bittensor. So before Targon, you were you were the COO of OpenTensor, which is the Bittensor Foundation. So tell us how you came to be involved with that and what that was like.
Well, that was fun. That's what it was like. But it was. So I started my career, actually. I mean, it's been so many twists and turns, it's not even funny. But I started very traditionally, M&A, technology, New York City, go to college. It's everyone's big dream, right? Go work in a cubicle. And I got exposed to crypto. I had always followed it from afar. I knew Bitcoin. I had a bit of Bitcoin, but I wasn't like you. I wasn't as smart as you were in 2013 to 2011, actually, to figure it out.
But 2013 is when I understood. But yes, go ahead.
So it took me a bit longer, but I knew it and I was interested in it. So I joined this group. We're covering technology. Then I get moved on to some fintech stuff. We're covering PayPal. We're covering Celsius. I mean, the worst crypto company you could imagine, right? Celsius. And then I meet a firm called GSR, which is a liquidity provider, trading firm, specifically within digital assets. Guy over there says, you got to drop what you're doing over there in the M&A world and come work in my world. So I go over there in late 2022. It's now, I think, September of 2022. And then shortly thereafter, a couple months into that gig, I find Bittensor. And I read the white paper. I read, everything I could read online, which is next to nothing. I watched this interview of Jake and Ala. It had 1,000 views. And I thought it was the best interview I'd ever heard my whole life.
And Jake and Ala are who, for those who don't know?
The founders of Bittensor.
Okay. Thank you.
And so I'm watching this interview. I send it to my dad and I say, how the hell did this thing only have 1,000 views? So I'm following it, and they had the liquid token TAO. I mean, barely call it liquid. They had a token called TAO. Highly illiquid. You had to buy it on this thing called Tensor Exchange, Tensor.exchange. You had to send your precious Bitcoin that you love, and you had to hope and pray that the guy would send you back TAO. And funny enough,
so this was like all over the counter. This was just an over the counter thing. So you met up with someone in Discord, and he said, here's a Bitcoin address, send it here. And then, give me your, is that how it worked?
So you didn't meet him on Discord. So originally it was on Discord a little bit before my time, but then someone created a front end for it called Tensor.exchange. And they had, the most illiquid order book. It was like, okay, you can buy 20 TAO at $30 a TAO. So that's $600. And then you'd click it, and then it would say, okay, send X Bitcoin to this address. And then you're waiting an hour for it to confirm. You don't know who the hell's on the other side. And then you just get TAO in your wallet. And there was one moment actually where my Bitcoin got stuck, and I was like, this thing's a total scam. But someone in the community figured out how to get me my money back, which again, I thought was super, super high signal. And you could tell early on that this was much different from all the other projects that I was seeing at GSR, and I saw a ton of them.
Yeah, just to set the stage here, because this sounds really janky to people who don't know, but this is exactly the way early Bitcoin was and the way early Ethereum was, like literally the same thing. So yeah, if you were around for those things, like this isn't as scary as it sounds. It's like an opportunity, right? So yeah,
that's what I took it as. And then so I said, okay, these guys need help. I mean, Tensor.exchange is not a way you're going to grow your protocol these days. There's Coinbase, there's ways to get liquidity, and you can get it pretty quickly if you want to. So I start messaging everyone. I message Jake, I message Ala, I message Rob, who we now run Manifold together. Message maybe 10 people in the community. No one answers. I don't want anything to do with this a-hole. And finally, I message someone in Discord and I say, hey, you guys need liquidity help. I think I can help. And long story short, we ended up working with, one of the first investors in the TAO token. We did the original liquidity provisioning deal back in March of 2023. We got on Mexi. We got
so
on
your company. So you sought them out to provide liquidity for them for TAO. This GSR company, you're working on behalf of GSR, right? Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
And then because you exist, now you're a market maker, which is what you need. You need liquidity to get on exchanges like MEXC and some of the sort of earlier, not Coinbase, but sort of the Farm League exchanges, right? So yeah.
Farm League. And we got on the Farm League, but it was so hard to get on the Farm League because GSR had to underwrite some of the risk. And I remember going into the, senior guy's office, and he just pointed to the chart and he said, it's gone from 80, because it ran up to 80 for some reason, down to 35. And he said, this thing's dead meat. You really want to touch it? And I said, we have to touch it. All right. So we touched it.
Yep.
And then I ended up coming down to Austin for Consensus in spring of 2023. I met Rob. I was incredibly impressed in so many ways by Rob. And I said, man,
so who's Rob, just for those who don't know?
Rob was the very first person in the Bittensor Discord back in 2021 or 2020. I don't know the exact date. So he was the first miner, longest standing miner, just brilliant person in every way you could imagine. I'm so very lucky to be able. Very highly technical. I'm very fortunate to be able to work with him. Right.
And he's your partner now in Targon. That's kind of where I'm going with this.
Correct. Okay. So we met in Austin in 2023. We hit it off. And at the time, I mean, people still say OpenTensor has a marketing problem, but I actually think you don't need to over market. The product in many ways should always speak for itself. Yeah. But there are some strategic things you do need to do, right? Otherwise your thing can die out. So I put together a few pages on what I wanted to do and sent it over to Rob. Rob sent it to Jake and Ala, and then the rest is history. I moved from New York to Austin, joined OpenTensor. Rob and I got this shit ass office, and I hope I can cuss, by the way. I have a foul mouth sometimes.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. We got an office. It was perfect for what it was at the time. And then Manifold was born out of that office in December of 2023. Company was formed, and
Manifold is the company behind Targon. Just for those who, it's not like a different thing. Yes,
correct.
Manifold Targon is a product of Manifold. Yeah,
correct. Manifold runs Targon, which is Subnet 4.
So, what is Targon? What is the product, and what problem are you trying to solve?
So, Targon.com does a couple things. What it does today is very simple: performs inference. So we have compute, right? Right now, for every dollar that a miner receives, this is funded by $1 in speculation, which you don't need to be a genius to know that is unsustainable. So we built Targon.com to begin bringing in organic revenue, which we can funnel back in and create this flywheel where miners bring compute. That compute is leveraged, and we can serve existing models, those created by other firms today. But where we're trying to go as early as next month is how do we begin leveraging this compute and allowing not just our company, because we don't believe any company has a monopoly on talent, ideas, monopoly on anything.
Yeah.
But how do we allow the whole world? How do we create a marketplace where we can connect this compute to the geniuses in Manifold, to the geniuses in, Lithuania, South America, individual researchers, universities, people who are compute constrained. And if they can move the needle forward, with these LLMs, state of the art, frontier AI, move the whole thing forward, then Targon will become an ecosystem where you have state of the art models. And if you have state of the art models, you'll have state of the art fine tunes. And if you have state of the art fine tunes, you'll have state of the art applications. So I won't go too much more down the rabbit hole, but fundamentally,
Let me just stop you there, because I want to sort of make sure this is very clear for people who may not understand everything that you just said. So if I go to Targon.com, right on the front page, I see DeepSeek AI, DeepSeek R1, DeepSeek V3, and another DeepSeek V3. So basically, I click on this, and I can run DeepSeek, the Chinese model that has been open source, right? And it runs on the GPU that has been supplied to the Targon network by the miners of Subnet 4. And I still have to pay you in order to run these models. It's almost like your AWS. So basically, you're competing with Amazon Web Services in a way by supplying the bandwidth and the compute and the preloaded model. I just push a button and I'm up and running. Is that essentially correct?
That's correct. Okay. But if you look at an Amazon, if you look at an OpenAI, if you look at a Together AI, if you look at these businesses who are trying to offer inference on a bunch of different models, To coordinate that compute is highly expensive. You have to raise a ton of debt, ton of equity. It's borderline unsustainable. I mean, I read the OpenAI manifesto yesterday, and Sam Altman said this will require hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars. Well, okay.
Yeah, and we can coordinate this because they have their own GPUs and they have their own data centers and they're paying for their own electricity. So because they're doing all those things, it's incredibly costly for them to do what you are doing, because you're saying instead of us owning all those GPUs and data centers and paying for electricity, we're asking a lot of you people out there to supply your GPUs and your electricity and to join our network. And in return, you're going to earn Subnet 4 alpha tokens. So you're basically going to get emissions from you're essentially going to be subsidized by the TAO blockchain emitting Subnet tokens to your wallet. Is that correct?
Correct. We're subsidized today. I think speculation, and why we subsidize, because there's been immense speculation. It's a pretty good bootstrap. But where we need to go is how do we make this sustainable? Remove speculation. So what prompted us to do this in the first place is, okay, what if we could create a market where people from all over the world with resources go and get that compute for us, and they're perfectly incentivized to do so. That's what we've now built. In 2024, that is what we've built. And so if you look at a recent deal that happened in the more traditional Web2 tech market, Lambda Labs raised a $500 million facility. And the interest rate on that debt is 15%. So the market is telling us that if a data center wants to acquire the capital to go acquire the chips, that costs about 15%. So what do we need to do? What do we need to be thinking about? Over the long run, how do we return 16, 17% in a coupon to those compute providers, and then they can pay off their debt? But then over the next 5-10 years, the real long run, I believe will drive the cost of capital lower, because if you're sitting there as an asset manager and you're underwriting the Lambda risk, that's significant counterparty risk within Lambda. So if you said, okay, I got Lambda, I got Nebius, I got Hut 8, I got all the players. Well, I think if you did it in one large tranche, the cost of capital is lower. But additionally, you could almost think of it like Lego pieces, where what if Lambda now only needs to raise $50 million? Cost of capital is probably lower. It's less than 15%, I would think. So I'm very excited about moving. There's been this exciting period where it's been good to be cheerleaders and wave our hands and all this stuff. But we're really laser focused at this moment now on how do we go and take the compute that we have procured and add more value into the real world, productive value to the economy, than what the protocol is emitting. Because if we can't do that, we don't have something that's sustainable.
Yeah, so it's sort of like Uber, right? Like, remember when Uber raised an ungodly amount of money, like billions of dollars, and there was a moment in history where even though me as a rider, when I paid for a ride, it was incredibly cheap and incredibly fast. However, that speed and that very low cost for me as the rider was subsidized about 50% by the venture capital money, right? So it wasn't like the real unit economics of Uber actually worked. And that was a problem, right? And it was a problem for the better part of a decade, right? And they eventually solved it and became profitable through a variety of mechanisms. One was just raising the price, right? And the other one was paying the drivers less, and the other one was Uber Eats. But they sort of found a combination of things which made them actually profitable, but it took a long time. So what you're saying is that you also have a subsidy, much like Uber did. It just comes from the blockchain. The blockchain itself is emitting tokens, and that's subsidizing. We didn't mention, by the way, that the cost of your product is significantly less for the end user than AWS. I've read various things, but I think it's at least 85% cheaper, right? So I'm literally paying 15% of what I would have paid with Amazon to do the same thing. So, and I'm getting exactly the same quality of product, or maybe better quality in some instances. Correct? So is that what you're saying? Did I get all that right?
Yeah, I like the Uber analogy, actually. I think that Bittensor is a very novel way to bootstrap your business. You don't have to go raise a seed round of venture capital. You
Yep.
can you can build this market. You have a built-in subsidy. And if you have product market fit, then you can say, okay, we're ready to really scale now. And then what does scaling look like? Well, it depends on what you're building. So this is spot on.
Yeah. Okay. So you're basically saying it's great that we have the subsidy. It's allowed us to get this far and produce a great product at 85% cost savings. But ultimately, you don't like. You could continue to go with the subsidy, but really, you don't want to. You want to scale up. You want to have basically a business model where you're making profits, where you're not reliant. You're making wild profits. Hopefully, right? Building off
Isn't
of
that
yeah, crazy,
isn't
right?
that a wild concept? I mean, yeah, we're a business that is thinking about making money.
Yeah.
And sometimes in this space, crypto, Web3, whatever the hell you want to call it, people don't maybe think this way. But that's what attracted me to BitTensors. I think there's maybe a logical lens. I wear logical glasses, I joke sometimes.
Yes.
We have big dreams, but you have to have those big dreams rooted in pragmatism. Otherwise, you'll never achieve the big dream. So I think what you said obviously hit the nail on the head. I'm not overly interested in just selling subsidized inference over the long run on someone else's model. A good way to think about BitTensor actually is, I ran the math this morning, $972 million emitted a year. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
This is the big leagues now. It's not like, oh, cute, these guys did this little thing and it's decentralized. It's like, no, we need to hold ourselves to a very high standard. That's $1 billion a year. Let's round up. $1 billion. I mean, if any other company raised $1 billion, you'd expect the world. So we must expect more than the world from ourselves. So if all we're doing is taking DeepSeek, taking IP created elsewhere, and then using inflation, printing new tokens to make TAO holders like ourselves collectively worse off, we won't win. So we're really focused on using this compute productively, opening up Targon to the world, truly enabling what we are kind of beginning to call the AI creator. If you look at YouTube, if you look at TikTok, because I liked your Uber analogy, I like getting it back into the real world.
Yeah.
YouTube in 2011, TikTok in, I don't know what it was, 2019, 2020, they raised 9-figure creator funds. And they said, okay, we want to create this marketplace of, those who create videos and those who consume videos. We need people to create videos and create good ones so that people consume them. And they've been wildly successful. So we want to apply this same concept. Okay. An LLM is only valuable if it powers a valuable application.
Mm-hmm.
And so the app builders will go where the most valuable models are. So what do we need to do now? If you look at the history of Manifold, we've coordinated the compute.
Yep.
Now we must take this compute that we have. And today, I mean, I don't know the exact number, but it's 9 figures worth of hardware that the subnet can afford, which is not terrible. I mean, if you wanted 9 figures worth of hardware as a traditional AI company, you're probably raising $500 million, right? If you spend 20% of it on the hardware.
Sure.
Anyway, how do we coordinate the most talented people in the world? I'll actually give you a really good example. It's a tweet. I wish I could show it. I wish I could share my screen. But there was a guy, he tweeted about a month ago, and his name was Zed. And he was working on this training run. And he said, hey, I think I have something really special here. If someone could lend me an A100 8-box, I'll pay you back. I promise the results will be huge. So who is this person? I don't know where he exists. He seems smart. He seems ambitious. He has one constraint, and it's compute. If we solve for that with him and he produces something brilliant, well, that model is served within Targon. And if that model is served within Targon, then you get the app layer all within this ecosystem. And once you get the users, we don't need to really be too worried about how to monetize this yet, because if you have something valuable, people will want to stay. And there are ways to make money if you have something that's valuable. So we're just laser focused on, again, creating something valuable.
Okay, so I think what you just said is like, look, there's a ton of raw, wild talent out there, much like there was for YouTube and TikTok. You know, a lot of dancers, a lot of people making YouTube content that was very interesting, sometimes better than what you see on TV. But it was sort of, you needed the creator funds. You needed it to be subsidized, at least in the beginning, to sort of get it up and running. And in your case, there's a lot of wild, raw AI talent in, various corners of the world that if it can get access to cheap inference, cheap or free inference or subsidized inference, it can be set loose. And then once, the results of their brains are hosted on Targon, that will bring even more people to your, into your orbit and using your platform. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's funny because we actually agree with OpenAI on a few things.
Yeah.
And one of them is talent coordination. We're just going about it a bit differently. OpenAI, Anthropic, XAI, take your whatever leading lab you want to use as the example. They are saying, okay, well, in order to be successful, we need the best models. In order to create the best models, we need the best talent. In order to get the best talent, we need to pay top dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we have the best models, we need the best product team. So we need the best product people all within our company. And if we can pull this off, we'll rule the world, I'm sure is what they're saying internally, right? Yeah. We agree with this. You need the best models. You need the best people. The only difference between a company like Manifold and a company like OpenAI is Manifold is saying, no. For whatever we do, we're never going to get all these people within this company. Our odds of success are greater if we can build a platform that enables all of these brilliant people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only difference.
Got it. Well, that's a very big difference, and that's exactly what Satoshi Nakamoto said in building his Nouveau Digital Gold plus alternate universe Swift system to move it around. Right? That could have been a company. Right? Satoshi could have doxed himself and gone to Sand Hill Road and said, "Hey, I want to do a thing." Right? And it probably would have never worked if he'd gone and done it that way. Right? But he did it like this sort of weird way. And it created 2 to 3 trillion, depending on when you look, dollars worth of value, right? One of the most successful products of all time could end up being the world reserve currency, right? Like it's not impossible. So, which is an incredible outcome, and it's completely disaggregated and decentralized, and just incentivize people around the world to contribute. They're mostly just their hash power, not really their brains. But you're saying, hash power and brains. Like let's go for the full potato, right?
Correct. Well, Let's go for the full potato. Well, you were the one, I think, Mark, who told me about the centralized sort of Bitcoins that you saw in the 90s. So I've been thinking about that over the last week, and that's a decent analogy here too.
Yeah, I saw the early attempts at it, and all of which died, right? So they tried to do it sort of old school, which was doing it old school was the wrong way to do this. So, and the more I watch what Bittensor's up to, the more I feel like, and I watch OpenAI, right? And I'm watching OpenAI floundering around, basically. I mean, they're big, but let me read you a little tweet from JJ, our friend JJ, who sometimes comes to your office, as I have seen, because I've been to your office also. So JJ is basically a big venture capitalist of some size in the Bittensor universe. And he's got multiple projects. And he tweeted this the other day. He says, ChatGPT does 60 trillion tokens a month over 2.5 years. So that's AI tokens, not like, crypto tokens. By contrast, Bittensor does 2 trillion tokens per month from zero in less than 6 months. So that it ramped up, right? So ChatGPT is doing 60 trillion. Bittensor does 20 trillion. So, 1/30th of the size. And that's in aggregate, you guys, Subnet 4, 64, which is shoots, 56, et cetera. So if you add all those up, that's 2 trillion tokens a month. The former, ChatGPT, raised $70 billion and is worth, he puts in quotes, $30 billion. and is hemorrhaging losses and is owned by the few. The latter is subsidized by TAO and owned by all. So if you look at those two models, like it's amazing to me that Bittensor is, already 1/30th of the compute power of ChatGPT. I mean, that's incredible, right?
Well, it is incredible. That I love that tweet. We love JJ. JJ's a fantastic person, fantastic for Bittensor. And the way he wrote it almost feels religious, which I think it's important to kind of feel this way sometimes, right? Like what we're doing really is very important. It's funny, actually. The other night I was watching Black Mirror, and there's this new episode, season 7, about Rivermind, this Rivermind Plus thing. Have you seen it? Where basically all it showed was big technology is completely manipulating us as humans. And to run the same thing back with AI would be so foolish. So, the people here on Bittensor having this fervent belief that we can build a counterweight to an OpenAI is, I think, what's needed to really allow us to pull this off. But on that point, because I had this conversation the other day with a compute provider, and I asked him, I said, because he's going on, and I said, how much, you see this, you got your feet on the ground, how much of the compute, of the on-demand compute right now, do you think is being consumed by Bittensor? And he said, more than you could imagine. Like easily over 20-30%. He didn't give me a number, but I've just noticed all of these compute guys, they're reaching out to us all the time. And when he said that, I got full on chills, because that was the kind of original vision, and we're now executing on it, which is Bittensor can consume a lot of the other resources in the world that are outside of OpenAI, Microsoft, the big guys. And together, we can build a big player ourselves. We can go play in this massive market, and we can be a legitimate counterweight, and we're owned by the people, not by the few, as JJ just said.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love the mission statement. So, okay, so if let me ask you some specifics about mining in your network, and then I want to get on to a little bit more about the product, but the mining first. So I'm just some guy. I've got a bunch of GPU sitting in, I don't know if rack space is still a thing, but let's just pretend it is. So, I got it in rack space, and I'm like, yeah, I want to make money off of this. And I stumble upon Targon, and I'm like, oh, look, these guys are basically, they have a help wanted ad for GPU, right, effectively. So I sign up, and I put miners, I guess, mining software. You supply the mining software. I put it on my boxes. I get 10 boxes, and I press go, and I'm up and running. Now, is that just GPU that I supply you, or do I have to load the models on? Are you like, okay, I want you to load DeepSeek? Okay, so now I don't have to do that. So you're shaking your head.
You take your compute, bring it onto the network, and you make money.
That's it. So then I go to sleep. I just load your software on, fire it up, and go to sleep, and I'm making money.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So you take care of. So your mining software, effectively, it loads whatever it needs to for the models. And are the models? Is it very sort of server centric, where it's like running on one machine, or is it abstracted? Sort of like how AWS has instances. You just buy compute. You don't actually buy computers, right? You buy abstracted compute. Is yours like that, or is it sort of more machine oriented?
Well, the model can run on however many GPUs we have, right? Okay. So depending on the need, depending on how many users we have on a particular model, that's where the model will then be run. The most popular models are run on more chips.
Okay. So basically the model gets better the more chips it has, or it gets faster, I guess.
That's correct. The more it's used, the more we have to allocate GPUs to that specific model.
Yeah. So if I'm a company and I want, and I'm basically told, hey, so go, we want to run some mission critical 5 nines, whatever, AI compute thing. Go to AWS and spin up some instances and get it going. And I go, yeah, but wait, there's this Targon thing, and it's like it's 85% cheaper. I want to go use that. Are you exactly as good as AWS in terms of security, uptime, 5 nines, like all that stuff? How do you compare across those metrics, enterprise metrics?
I think we compare phenomenally well.
Okay.
And that's because we've built what is called a trusted execution environment. So we're calling it the Targon virtual machine.
Okay.
Your data is secure by design, right? Like we don't need to go like Amazon and say, okay, let's sign this contract. You trust us that we're not going to do anything with your data. It's not going to leak. We're not going to train on it, all this stuff. With Targon, I actually think we might be in a better position relative to an Amazon when going, to a healthcare company where the most important thing is actually the data and making sure that it's not reused, leaked, right? I mean, this is the one thing that I think is stopping a lot of these legacy industries from adopting the technology. And I think we have the solution. And so we're scaling first. So we're working with Dippy, we're on OpenRouter, we have Targon.com, and we're ensuring that we can handle a lot of the load. And so far, it's working very well.
Let's talk about Dippy for a second. A lot of people don't know what Dippy is. I do, but Dippy is an app. It's like a chatbot app, right? It's an AI chatbot, but it's incredibly popular. I think they have like hundreds of thousands of downloads of their iOS app, maybe millions.
Yeah,
it's something big. I don't remember the exact number. So I think they were using another system. They're using another environment, and now they moved to Targon. Is that correct?
That's correct. They're in the process of moving from Together to Targon.
Wow.
Why? Because it's cheaper, right? I mean, inference is going to zero, which is also why we don't want to build a business around inference. But when the getting's good, you can take the money and put it back into the subnet to reduce our reliance on speculation.
And Dippy's also another subnet for those who don't know. So they're also a Bittensor. So we have this composability of subnets using other subnets, which is kind of an interesting dynamic, right? It's like DeFi composability.
It's fun, right? You have these built-in business partners. Dippy is heavily incentivized to work with us. We actually provided compute to a miner on another subnet recently, and it's very collaborative, which is important because there are times when I have felt, I feel like we're getting too hostile internally, and we are not. Manifold is not in the business of trying to become the tallest midget. We're in the business. We're in the business of going and competing with OpenAI. So it's counterproductive to sit here and try to compete internally. I wish everyone in Bittensor the best. And if you say, like, what does success look like? It's having an outcome where we have a token that's valued. It's something like Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin's obviously been very successful. Where are we today? What's the market saying we are today? We're at about 0.4% of Bitcoin. So we have a long way to go. The odds are not on our side. We have a lot of belief. We have a lot of passion. We have all of the raw sort of heart and soul things that are needed to win in business and in life. And so what we're blending here, at Manifold, and what we really want to lead is, okay, how do we make this practical? How do we, and there's a very realistic path to doing it. That's what makes me excited about it. It's not like we're selling hopes and dreams. We're executing quarter by quarter on our roadmap without fail so far. And I think we have a path.
Yeah, let me get to that one second. I just want to. So you said something really interesting about Dippy that I want to make sure it doesn't get lost here. So because all of the subnets, ultimately, their alpha tokens are staked TAO, right? So we're highly incentivized. All the subnets are highly incentivized to use each other because the more we help out, another subnet that's in our same ecosystem, a TAO-based ecosystem, the more we're driving the value of the base coin TAO up, right? So, if I'm Dippy, I'd rather use Targon than AWS because I'm helping Targon become more valuable, which is driving up the cost of TAO, which helps me because even my own subnet is priced in TAO. So it's like a Keiretsu through incentivization. right? Yeah.
That's correct. If Bittensor has taught me one thing, and it's taught me a lot of things, but the one most important takeaway I have, and it's something that's so basic, you hear it all the time from guys like Charlie Munger.
Yeah.
Show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy how often incentives can get messed up in traditional companies. You have power dynamics, you have all this shit. Whereas this sort of network, where it's not, don't trust the person, just trust the code. Trust what the code is going to do. That is so unbelievably powerful. And I think, to your point, gives us a real shot at success.
Yeah, that's super, super interesting. Okay. So you guys, you're making an enterprise product, or a product anyone can use. Do you charge money? Can I just swipe a credit card? Like, how do I pay you?
Yeah.
Is it payment in TAO? Is it payment in credit card, or is it all of the above?
It is whatever the user needs. And the user happens to like old fashioned credit cards. It's funny to call credit cards old fashioned, but here we are.
They are.
Yeah. But people like to use credit cards. So they use credit cards, right? If they want to pay us in some other way, we'll make sure that they can do that. But right now, credit cards work quite well.
Okay. So that is that primarily how people pay you, through credit cards? Is that how it mostly works right now?
Correct. Yeah. It's nice to see those Stripe. We use Stripe, so it's nice to see, green Stripe sort of line items on our bank account ledger.
Yeah, that's great. It's revenue. Who knew there was revenue in crypto, right? There's just emissions, right? No, there's revenue too, right? So I like that. So okay, so hopefully, your goal is to become a viable AWS competitor in this narrow sliver of AI stuff that you do, and take business away from them and OpenAI and everybody else. I guess it's OpenAI more than Amazon, because you come with the models loaded.
It is OpenAI. I mean, think about how powerful it is that we can create an OpenAI, but we're not reliant, because we have our, like you said, our AWS built in through the subnet, through that commodity layer. Whereas OpenAI is projected to spend $13 billion in 2025 alone to Microsoft. There are a couple problems with this. One, I don't think Microsoft's given them the best rate in the world. At least in my experience working with these bigger companies, that they're not charging, what a shade form can charge. That you're paying this premium for the brand and the security that comes with that. So OpenAI is already not as efficient with the 13 billion as Bittensor would be. But you don't need to believe a ton. So a few minutes ago, I said, well, right now the market's pricing at 0.4% of Bitcoin. Whatever Bitcoin's at, $90-something thousand today. If we get to a quarter,
0.4%, not 0.4, not like 40%. Yeah.
No. I wish, but maybe one day. 0.4 of 1%, 40 basis points. If as you go along and try to model, okay, so a 0.4%, that's $1 billion. So we need to 13x that to get to OpenAI. So that's about 5% of Bitcoin. And then you have the budget within the Bittensor economy. And then with dynamic TAO, which I don't know how into the weeds we want to go with this right now. But what's very cool about how Bittensor operates under the hood today is that anyone who holds TAO, whether it's myself, whether it's you, Mark, whether it's anyone else here in this office, you have the opportunity to vote and say, okay, well, I like what Targon's doing. I like the vision that the stewards of this market are trying to implement. I want to reward this with more emissions so that this economy can afford more compute. Because if this economy can afford more compute, then we increase our odds of defeating OpenAI. If there's a market that's doing, garbage meme coin stuff, the free market will likely say, I don't want to value this. Right? So this dynamic is, no pun intended, quite powerful. The individual's ability to set emissions.
Yeah, and it's less. In my mind, it's sort of less altruistic, where it's like, where should we direct government funding? Well, we should save the whales or whatever. It's not. It's less that. It's more I'm Dippy, and I use Targon, and I want them to keep increasing their compute power and keep adding new models. So I'm going to direct some portion of my emissions into their DTAO, right? Because because just practically, I want them to have a better product, so my product is better, right? So
correct.
Yeah. So I really like that. Now, when you make actual money from Stripe, do you then turn around and buy back some of your DTAO alpha tokens? Is that something you do or will do in the future?
We will do this in the future. Ideally, actually, we'd like to route it through a smart contract.
Yeah.
So what you just mentioned, why would you buy a dynamic TAO token?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's only one answer. If it's good for you.
Yes.
And if we can do what I said earlier and return, 16, 17% coupon via the revenue generated by the compute, then people will come and buy this merely because that's a good return on your money.
Yes.
And then, of course, as the trade becomes more crowded, cost of capital moves even lower. And so, we have on one side of this, my whole thesis of how we could drive this cost of capital lower is, well, if you're lending to multiple versus one, you're de-risking. But as well as you open up this facility to more people, there'll be more. As the price gets bid up, the value of the interest goes lower.
Yes. So let me ask you. Sorry, I just want to return to the miners for a second because I forgot to ask a question. So if let's just say there's 100 miners, all of equal GPU compute power in your network, 25 of them are owned by me. Do I now get 25% of the miner emissions? Because it's just raw GPU calculation, right? How much CPU am I supplying? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I just want to verify that. Okay.
We wanted to make it dumb easy for people.
Yeah.
Right. No, bring compute on and then let the rest of the world. We're actually via the Targon marketplace that we're building here. We're applying the exact same concept that made Bittensor successful in the first place, which is how do we coordinate brilliant people from all over the world to accomplish a shared mission? And we're almost, you can think of it as the crypto mullet, maybe as something people like to say. We're crypto in the back, but the front end, we want it to look and feel. I mean, we have a bit of the diagrams there, actually. It needs to look and feel first class. It's got to be premium. If a button is on the page, it has to be there if and only if it helps the user. If it doesn't help the user, you can forget about it. So
you're paying extreme attention to UI and productization.
We must. I mean, that's what OpenAI is doing.
Amazingly, that's something that a lot of people in crypto ignore, right? and even within Bittensor, right? So I find it rare. I find it shockingly rare.
Well, maybe it is. If it's rare, then that's good for us. If our competition isn't as focused on it, but we're laser focused on it because ultimately, I think that's where you differentiate yourself. Because if all you're doing is coordinating compute, well, that's a commodity. Over the long run,
if the UI sucks on top of that aggregated compute, however powerful it is, nobody can use it.
The compute will leave.
Yeah,
exactly. The compute will leave because you won't generate revenue, so this subsidy will dry up, go to zero, and then we'll have looked back on the conference and said, "Oh, well, that was a cute idea. Maybe someone else will pull it off." Because I know someone will pull it off. It's been a pretty clear idea in my mind the second I heard about Bittensor. Right. It's like, okay, one company is not going to be able to coordinate this. We need some way to coordinate this. This is a novel way to coordinate it. Let's go and try to really take the lead here and execute.
Yeah. Just like what Uber did with cars, right? There are all these cars and drivers floating around out there, but they didn't know they could make money driving people around. Right. And you just coordinate them by geography and who needs a ride. And you're doing the same thing with GPUs. You're GPU Uber, in a sense, right?
Yeah. So yeah, right now, I guess you could say that we're
Yeah,
allowing people to monetize their compute more
yeah.
efficiently.
It's a great mission. So, so how do you? So what is your sort of go to market plan like with your product right now? It's sort of like who's using you? You said Dippy. Are you? Is there a plan to sort of do a marketing campaign to enterprise? Like who is your target market once you sort of get your fully consumer ready product up and running?
Fantastic question. So there's two ways that I'm sure you can think about it. Way one would be, okay, let's just go take anyone we can from together, but that's not focused.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've kind of identified that profile that we call it the Dippy profile.
Yeah.
Dippy is in many ways the perfect client. They're rapidly growing. They're sensitive to cost because they're not, some high flying funded startup.
Yeah.
And they're doing a good amount of tokens a month. So it's, meaningful revenue to us and meaningful revenue to the Bittensor ecosystem and those who hold Subnet 4 token. So we want to go find more Dippies. We want to first do a fantastic job with the current Dippy, the real Dippy, the OG Dippy, and then and then we'll do a case study, and we'll be then able to poach these other clients. The theme of this episode has been 85% cheaper. Well, that's pretty easy to sell, right? You could be the worst salesman in the world, and you can walk in, and you could walk in with 85% less, and you might still have a chance. You actually probably would pull it off because again, this first sort of iteration of Targon is pure commodity. People care about one thing only, and it's price. They actually care more about price than the data stuff, which is why we don't go around talking about it all the time because people don't care. If we've learned anything from the last decade is that, people share anything and everything in order to get those extra dopamine hits. So our go-to-market is, focused initially. If we can do this well, I think we'll then be able to expand into other markets, larger companies that, are more data sensitive if we can execute here.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a ton of sense. Great answer. So, I love what you guys are doing. And it was really fun to tell Jason Calacanis about you guys on This Week in Startups, which I know you saw. Because I think, so for those who don't know, I went to the Bittensor conference, and then like the next day I went on Jason Calacanis's show This Week in Startups, and I had the previous night at dinner been telling Jason about Bittensor, and he was very curious about it. He was like, "Wow, this sounds amazing," and he thought it was pretty interesting, and so he said, "Can you come on the show tomorrow and like explain it to our audience?" So I was like, "Sure." So I didn't expect that because traditionally Jason has hated crypto. So I figured he would just be like, yeah, whatever. Mark Jeffrey's up to his crypto BS, whatever. I don't care. But he actually became very interested in it. And so I went on the show, and I brought you guys up specifically because I knew it was a specific example of a product that he would relate to, right? It wouldn't sound like, crypto. It wouldn't sound like meme coins or, something useless. It was something very useful, right? And also you guys were very top of the list of, the most successful Bittensor subnets. So that would resonate with him also. So then I saw the video of me on the show, and you guys, and you were in the video too, were watching me from your office, watching the show and laughing about like, oh my God, he's talking about us. So I personally got a huge kick out of that. So thank you for videoing that. That was great.
Well, it was I don't even know who videoed it actually. But someone pinged us in Slack and they said, Mark's talking about Targon right now. And they sent the link. So I grabbed my laptop, sprinted over to Rob, and I said, look. And we were there watching it for a few minutes. And then I guess we were excited about it and someone wanted to video it. It was cool. I think hopefully it's another moment that we look back on.
Moment. We went to the website and we did like the whole thing, right? So it was pretty fun.
Another moment that was really fun was when Chamath mentioned Bittensor.
Yeah,
mentioned Bittensor about a year ago, and we were all in the office. and we were like, it was fun.
Yeah, that was a great moment. I remember that because I remember, I was really surprised that Chamath knew about it. But then I recalled that Barry Silbert and Chamath are bros. So I don't know what happened there, but I suspect Barry Silbert probably told him about it. So I think Chamath was on the board of one of Barry Silbert's companies. They're tight, and they've known each other for a very long time. So my guess is that's how Chamath kind of found out about it. So that was pretty wild. So
no, it's quite exciting. I think that a lot of these sorts of people are beginning to poke around, and it's exciting. I think it's a good sign. And again, now we need to. A theme of this has also been focus. Like, we want to remain focused. Try to ignore the noise and just do our jobs.
Well, the rebooted economics, like it's really hard. You just look at the way OpenAI is doing things, and you look at the way, just as you described in terms of recruiting, you got to like own the people, right? You don't have to own the people. You need them to contribute. You don't have to own them, right? They don't have to be employees, right? But you do need them to contribute. You just rethink how that incentive and contribution methodology works. You can just completely rethink how people work together. And Bitcoin showed us that you could have machines and humans incentivized and working together in a different way, and everybody makes money. They don't have to be employees, right? So I think, or even contractors, they just need incentives to be aligned. So I think the way you laid that out was really powerful. And you're just like, hey, we can apply it here. And by the way, we can get 85% cost savings on the product. I mean, oh my God, right? It feels hard to beat. So I can see why Chamath is interested in all this.
And we get, and that's all through the subsidy today. And I think it's important that we can get initial usage and initial product market fit, but ultimately going out into the economy, adding productive value on this compute, accelerating the flywheel, we have a real shot. We really do.
Totally agree.
It's a great time. It's a great time to get involved. If this is your first time hearing about Bittensor, you should dive in, I would say.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I'm always happy to talk to people. I know, Mark, you've been incredible at onboarding people. I think it's important work, right? Because we're only as talented as the amount of talent that we have within our ecosystem. And so I tell people all the time, we're in the business of finding talent. And so if you're interested now about Bittensor, we're always happy to chat.
Yeah, I mean, Bittensor is what OpenAI should have been, right? What OpenAI pretends to be, right? Sort of like when Gandalf the White is talking about Saruman the White, saying, "I am now what Saruman should have been," right? And Saruman is like, he pretends to be like the super wizard, but really he's a big jerk, right? That's sort of like OpenAI pretends to be like the super white wizard, but actually they're a big jerk. So
that's correct.
Meanwhile, Bittensor is Gandalf the White, which is the actual super wizard, the way it should be, aligned with good, right? So I feel that. I feel that as well. So
it's an important thing to get right. It's very important that we get this right. Who owns this is of critical importance. I don't think there's anything more important right now in the world that you could be focused on or working on. So if you're also looking for a job, we're hiring, right? We want talented people. We want talented people on Targon.com. We'll give you free if you're talented, you deserve free credits. We have to get it right? It's the most important thing.
Targon.com is the website where people find you?
Targon.com. You can find me on Twitter. You can email me. You can do whatever you need to do to get in touch and get on Targon and get cranking, right? We won't slow down. So we'll just throw you right into the fire and you'll have a blast.
All right. Well, on that note, James, thank you so much for taking a moment to speak with us. This has been highly educational and always a pleasure. It was great to hang out in your office. So thank you for hosting me in your office last week. That was great. It was fun to see everybody running around with Vision Pros on their head. That was a surprise. I didn't expect all the sort of, Minority Report stuff going on around me. I have a Vision Pro and I love it, but like most people I know don't like it. So I was really cool but weird to see like all these fans of it. Like the young kids today, they're all on Vision Pros. I didn't expect that. So super
Yeah,
cool.
well, mine's collecting a bit of dust. I'm not as big of a fan, but it's very cool. It was so great to have you. You're of course welcome anytime.
Oh, I'll be back. Don't worry.
Good. And I had fun talking, and hopefully it was helpful.
All right, everybody. My name is Mark Jeffrey. This has been Hash Rate. We'll see you all next time.
Have the AI observe the quantum double-slit experiment. If it's able to collapse the wave function in exactly the same way as a human observer, then it's conscious like we are. There's someone at home in there.
Armand, your own father was part of Concordia. It was they who ordered him to produce the Musepocalypse. I'm chasing machine consciousness. Who will be first to make a soul in a mind made of metal? A real soul, electric sentience.
Metatronic.
This is a synchronicity engine. It is used to calculate a path through the world, one that produces favorable chance occurrences in order to obtain a specific result.
Look out! Drive faster!
I now know how to create an electronic peripheral that will allow for true conscious machines.
So this is the Atman project. This is not what I expected. Where are the military training camps?
Concordia believes that consciousness is primary, matter secondary. Reality, matter itself, is just a vibrational construct of frozen thought.
Here is a tale of a man's deeds and desires, of his quantum choices, of madness and twisted wires, his astrology encrypted and hidden from view. Only pyramids and shadows know the things that he'll do. Stop. Listen, I'll make you a deal. Me for them.
Your father didn't merely die in the challenges. Oh no, Verinder killed him.